Mayor Taylor, we have started recording.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Good evening, council, staff, and members of the public who may be listening to this council meeting tonight, either live or the recorded version. I will call our council meeting of July 12th to order. I will remind all participants to please keep yourself on mute unless you are talking. And if we have two public meetings tonight before our regular council agenda, the first public meeting that we'll get into is the public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act. This is related to a zoning bylaw amendment, which is required as a condition of consent. And I'll turn it over now to our planner to discuss the details of this. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. I'll start off with the preamble here. Following is a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment and minor variance held under Section 34 and Section 45 of the Planning Act. A person or public body that would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan before the bylaw is passed or a decision is made, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan before the bylaw is passed or a decision is made, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Notification for this application was circulated to all required agencies and landowners in accordance with the applicable Planning Act regulations. So our first item is a rezoning application Z09-21, which has been applied for to address condition of consent for severance applications B-2320 and B-2220. The retained lands for both applications are the same for each application, which fronts onto Keene Road, which is south of O'Brien Road. Purpose of the consent application B-22-20 is to create a new lot. Has approximately 85 meters of frontage along Keene Road and has a lot area of approximately 0.62 hectares. This portion of the subject property is zoned rural. And rezoning is required to address the deficient lot area and lot frontage of the proposed new lot. The purpose of consent application B-23-20 is for a lot addition at the rear of the existing residential lot on 2049 Keene Road. This portion of the subject property is also zoned rural. The property currently has the lot frontage of approximately 38 meters. The conditionally approved lot addition would result in a lot area of approximately 0.47 hectares. Therefore, rezoning is required to address the deficient lot area of the enlarged lot. It is therefore recommended that the proposed rezoning is approved, as rezoning from rural to rural residential will adequately address lot frontage and lot area deficiencies of the conditionally approved severances. That's about it. If there's any questions from council, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ken. And just for clarification, there is only one zoning bylaw amendment required tonight, but for the two conditions of consent, for two consent applications, correct?
That's correct. The severance, from what I understand, the severance applications were submitted together, and so staff are willing to accept one rezoning application.
Thank you. Okay, questions, members of council? I think I saw Councillor Powers' hand up. Go ahead, Nick.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is simply a reapplication to an application that was submitted, I believe, last year and approved by council, if I'm not mistaken. I see Ken shaking his head, yes. So there's been no changes, is that right, Ken, to the previous one?
Yes, from what I understand, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Clark, go ahead.
Through the mayor, no questions. Certainly, council agreed to this before. It's just getting the zoning bylaw in place. So that's okay. Fine. I'll certainly go with the recommendation of staff and move forward on this.
Okay, thank you. I'll get back to you in a moment on that. This is a public meeting, so I do have to make the
I'm sorry, Mayor.
So seeing no other questions from council to staff, this is a public meeting. Is there anyone here on the screen that would like to speak in support of the application? I see Laura Stone with a hand up. Go ahead, Laura.
Hi, thank you very much, and good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff members. My name is Laura Stone. I am with KMD Community Planning, And we are the agents for the applicant for this. And I just wanted to go on record that we are in support of this application.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Laura. Is there anyone on the screen that would like to speak either in opposition to the application or to seek clarification? I am not seeing anyone. Okay, Heather, did you get all the information you needed from Laura there with regards to a representation?
Yes, Mayor Taylor, I did.
Okay, thank you. All right, so it seems to be there's nobody here to speak in opposition to the application. So Deputy Clerk, I think you were prepared to make a motion. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to make the motion that council approve the application Z09-21 and consent for application B22-20 and B23-20 and move to the rezoning section of and in our bylaw.
Perfect. Seconded by Councillor Powers. Any questions on the motion? We'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And welcome, Councillor Allen. Okay, so that's, let me just see here now. We have no public agency or comments for that. I just need a motion, please, to adjourn from the Section 34 public meeting. We've got Powers and Councillor Howie, all in favor? That is carried, thank you. Okay, we will move now to the Section 45 public meeting. We just have to give our Mexicom high speed a minute to catch up to me here.
Through to the mayor, are you inferring that you're faster than the Nexcom high speed, Mayor Taylor?
At times, yes. So, okay, we're good. We're live. If everybody's good to go here, we will call our Section 45 public meeting to order. And this is to deal with a minor variance. Again, I will turn it over to our planner. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. This is minor variance application NV-2021-A002. It's relative to the land's address 2336 Indian River Line. The property is approximately 42 hectares with a detached dwelling and agricultural uses existing of the subject property. The minor variance application is to permit a secondary dwelling to be developed with a separation distance from the principal dwelling to be 80 meters, whereas 50 meters is the maximum permitted under section 4.3.2J of the township's zoning bylaw. The subject property is designated agricultural in the township official plan and is zoned agricultural environmental protection in the township's zoning bylaw. Accessory secondary suites are permitted in the agricultural designation and agricultural zone. And from reviewing the site and the proposal, it is my opinion that the proposal meets the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, subject to the water and sewage capacity study, which I've recommended as a condition of approval. And I conducted a site visit of the subject property, and I walked around, took a look at everything, the existing conditions, and I took into consideration the topographic conditions, the existing structures, the existing mature trees, and the agricultural uses on the subject lands. And as you can see on the site photos I provided, this secondary dwelling, the footprint will be proposed at the end of a driveway, which is flat and has drainage down to the agricultural lands that are adjacent to it, and is clear of the structures of the lands. And it was my opinion that the requested relief of 30 meters is in fact minor in nature, and that given the conditions of the subject property, it is appropriate for the development of this particular property. And for that reason, I've laid out conditions of approval, and I do believe this minor variance represents sound planning.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. You know, I think this is the first time I've ever seen a minor variance application with a request to increase a distance instead of decrease it. So it's a little unique in that respect. But I think I saw questions from council. I think I saw Deputy Clerk's hand. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor, and I did put my call into our planner today because of the minor variance, asking for more, and Ken explaining that when he did the site visit, this made good planning. And I think site visits are important. You don't get the true picture until you do. So certainly I am in support of this with Ken having given the background regarding this, and certainly with the provisions of water and public health. So absolutely in support. And as you say, I totally agree. The first time I've ever seen a minor variance, asking for more.
Yeah, it's important to note that the staff's recommendation is to approve, but there are 4 conditions attached to that approval. Any other questions to our planner on this application? Councillor Powers, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yeah, in general, I am also in favor of this. I think it's, again, good planning, and the site visit obviously really helped to clarify pieces there. One question for you, Ken, is related to, it appears to be close to the barn. I don't know if MDS ever comes into play related to this. And if it does, can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I actually did look this up. I believe it's MDS guideline number 14. It states that when a new residential dwelling is proposed on the same lot where a barn exists, the MDS guidelines no longer apply. Ken Curry and I had that conversation actually as well.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council to staff? Ken, I had one on the drawings that you submitted. And I'm just going to call it up here now. At the site, the sketch site plan is simple enough to understand, but below that, there's a sketch with a lot of numbers on it. I don't know if is that a concrete pad with survey spots, or what, you see all that 16, 19 inches, 20 inches. What is that?
I believe that is the adjacent lots, but the artist of that drawing is actually in this meeting. Perhaps he could answer that question better than I can, but I believe those are existing residential lots, if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly.
Okay, I don't think so, but perhaps Mr. Yeomans, is that you're
Yes.
called on the screen? Yeah. Could you
Yeomans.
Could you clarify that for us? Do you see the picture or the sketch that I'm referring to?
I know the one you mean, Councillor Taylor. It's I just took some shots there, and they're in 25-foot intervals of basically the area where the house is going, and that's the elevations.
Okay, elevation
Yeah.
shot.
So
Okay.
it's just more. I forget who I was talking to, said the more information you can provide. It's just all elevations right in that area to show the grade.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, council, I don't see any. Are there any further questions to planning staff on this particular application? If not, again, this is a public meeting. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak in support of the application? Seeing no hands, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application or to seek further information? Seeing no hands again. Is council prepared to make a decision on the application at this time? Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
That we approve the minor variance application and move it to our bylaw section with the 4 conditions.
The approval with the 4 conditions. Very good. Thank you. I don't know that the minor variance goes to the bylaw.
Oh,
Well,
does it not? Okay, my mistake. Thank you.
That's okay. But the motion is to approve it with the 4 conditions. Okay. Seconded by Deputy Clerk.
Yes.
Any questions on the motion? Pretty straightforward. Thank you very much. We'll call the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Usual appeal period. Staff can explain that to you, Mr. Yeomans, but council just approved your application.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. We are now going to move into our regular council meeting of July 12th.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we need a motion to adjourn this.
Sorry. Correct. Thank you, Greg. I need a motion, please, to adjourn the Section 45 public meeting. Before we do that, Councillor Allen, Councillor Howie, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. That's correct. So now we are adjourned from the 2 public meetings. We are going to move into our regular council meeting. And I will call our regular council meeting of July 12th to order at exactly 6:18. Announcements from the mayor. I have one announcement. I think it falls under that category. Some time ago, the township made application to FCM for some funding assistance to do with their asset management program. And I received confirmation here a couple of days ago, I and staff, and I'll just read you some of the attached letter. Dear Mayor Taylor and members of council, on behalf of the Municipal Asset Management Program, it is my pleasure to confirm that the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan has been approved for a grant in the amount of up to $50,000. In the near future, Natalie Johnson will contact the Director of Finance and Treasurer of the Township to finalize the agreement for the grant. FCM's obligation to fund the above noted initiative will only become binding once the agreement is fully executed. There's some other stuff after that, but essentially the important part is that we were successful in the funding of $50,000 for FCM, and I know that our treasurer in a future finance report will have more details on that. So I'm very pleased to announce that. Deputy Clerk, did you, Bonnie?
Oh, great news. And just wondering, and as you say, we'll have an update on it, but just with up to a $50,000 grant, I am trying to think back what the cost of what we had thought the cost would be, Mayor Taylor.
Yeah, and I don't have that information right now, but as I said, in a subsequent finance report, Jocelyn will bring all that information forward to us and some more details.
Thank you.
Okay, does any member have a disclosure of pecuniary interest with any of the matters before us this evening? Seeing none. Next on the agenda, we move to a notice of motion. We had one presented at our last council meeting by Deputy Clerk. And the procedure here, Bonnie, is to have you read your notice of motion again, and then if we get a mover and a seconder, we can discuss it. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, where it is recognized that playgrounds are an essential and enjoyed aspect of a park in a community as they provide a safe environment for children of all ages to develop physical, social, cognitive, and emotional skills, as well as encouraging outdoor physical activity. And whereas accessibility, outdoor play areas provide an all-encompassing setting to allow for barrier-free development through friendships, creativity, and fun. Therefore, be it resolved that we request township staff to prepare a report to establish a park and playground in the settlement of Keene, and this implementation to include reaching out to individuals and organizations who may be interested in partnering with the municipality on this project. In addition, staff also be requested to report on the feasibility of a playground in the South Monaghan ward, and these reports come back to council prior to budget preparations for the year 2022.
Thank you. I'm going to assume that you are going to move that motion.
Yes, correct.
And do I have a seconder? Councilor Howie will second it. Okay. Discussion. Is there any questions that you want to ask either the author of the motion or staff? Go ahead, Ken.
Get us off mute there. Yeah. No, I think it's a great idea that we have to look at parkland for the kids and everything. It also brings families into our area, you know, when we have things like that. But I'd really like to see them look hard into the South Monaghan area. There's been talk of it in the parks and the recs over a number of years, and we don't seem to be going anywhere with it. So, you know, I'd like to see really that we do a hard effort to see what we can do there.
Fair enough. I think Councilor Powers, did you have your hand up earlier?
I did not, but I certainly don't mind making some comments. Which is, I'm obviously in support of this. I think it is a good initiative. I think the important piece is if there are budget implications, what I suspect there would be, the caveat of having those reports delivered prior to the budget would allow us to identify anything that can and should be included in our 2022 budget and beyond. I think are important steps as well. So, and I
Thank
know
you.
this has come up, sorry, Mayor Taylor, I know this has come up multiple times, as Councillor Howie had mentioned, at our Parks and Arena Committee regarding playgrounds and parklands and some future plans. And so I think this is in line with what the Parks and Arena Committee was looking at doing in the future as well. So I think this lines up well.
Thank you. Councillor, go ahead, Bonnie. Yep.
Yes, and in speaking to the motion to reach out to partners, I do have contacts that I will pass on to the Rec Committee Board and several people that are wanting to come forward to that board with presentations. So I will forward that information.
All right. Councillor Allen, I want to make sure everybody's had a chance. Did you have your hand up, Mark, to speak to this?
Mayor Taylor, sure. I'd like to just take a quick minute, and I'll check that I'm having some technical difficulties here, but hope that my my microphone is working. And I just want to applaud the Deputy Mayor Clark on her motion, as I think it's something that's long overdue and well needed within our community. And I look forward to that information coming to council in 2022, so we can hopefully prepare appropriate budget to move forward with some of those plans that are brought forward. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Clark.
All right, thank you to members of council. I will point out that we do have a 5-year capital plan in our parks, in parks and arena budget. And in 2021, I have it in front of me here, in 2021, during budget discussions, we directed staff that we were hoping to spend $5,000 on park, ground, and playground improvements, aluminum bleachers in Keene, $8,000, Burnham Meadows Park, which we've committed to those residents, and we know the RFP has gone out. I believe it's almost ready to be opened. $300,000 we're planning on spending on the Burnham Meadows Park this fall, and the Algetty Playground we had committed in our budget in 2021 to spend $80,000. So we have quite a few projects ahead of us in 2021 and a lot of funds associated with that. We have capital projects in parks extended right through for the next 5 years. Next year, we had anticipated spending $68,000. And if council is changing their mind on where some of those funds should be allocated, then staff certainly needs to know that so they can move some of the capital forecast plans around. Greg, what from staff perspective, are there any concerns with this, or what do we need to know?
Mr. Mayor, I think you summed it up. We do have a 5-year capital plan. We have a lot on our plate, and we did discuss this back in budget for in December and November and December of 2020 about parks and playgrounds. And at that particular time, the priorities that were set out were Burnham Meadows and as well the Algetty playground. So we have, as Mayor Taylor says, these RFPs are out and they should be closing here in the next couple of weeks. So we will be hopefully bringing a recommendation to award an RFP, hopefully for the August meeting. So as far as our organizational capacity to undertake projects, we're pretty full here for the next 6 to 8 months, probably. And then as Mayor Taylor said, that the projections for 2022 that we presented to council was for Parkland and Indian River. And so we'll just need to look at our priorities moving forward. But again, the big, I guess the big takeaway on this one is that we've got a couple of major projects that our staff are undertaking, and so from an organizational capacity, we'll have to see at what timing in 2022 we might be able to bring some of this stuff forward.
Correct, and this will be part of the budget discussions. I think, Bonnie, did you have your hand up?
Yes, certainly this is important for all our settlement areas, and I think all of council recognize that. In Keene, there, which is one of our larger settlements, there is no opportunity for a playground for children. We have always assumed that they could go over and use the public school, but we do have the daycare there. And when the daycare is functioning and out of COVID times, then there is no accessibility there. And I believe that each and every person on council has received numerous calls from residents, and the same when I was door knocking in South Monaghan, the same thing. So whether we do have to shift around and maybe do a little bit of a look at the landscape and paring back in order that all our residents do have the opportunity of some kind of playground areas in where and around and where they live. I think it's healthy, and it's an obligation that I think council will take into consideration. I know they will when we do come to the budget. So thank you.
You're welcome. There's no question that the contribution of parks is recognized as an important piece of a healthy community. And certainly, we as a township, we contributed to some funds of that playground equipment over at the school some years ago. And it was an interesting discussion at the time, but we thought then that was what was available to the Keene settlement area. And so we did put some funding in there. But at any rate, what the motion is requesting is staff prepare a report, and that report will be ready before our 2022 budget and be part of the deliberations where decisions will be made about where funds can be allocated with regards to playgrounds. Fair enough? Okay, we're going to call the vote. Call the vote on the motion. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, from staff, Greg, do you think you have everything you need to satisfy the motion?
Yeah, I believe we do, Mr. Mayor. The other thing, just to remind council members that at the request of council this spring, and I think it was the deputy mayor had asked us to apply for funding to the FCC, the Farm Credit Corporation, and they are still deliberating on our application. And so we did look at applying for money for playgrounds in the village.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Greg, I wasn't aware. I thought that when there was no news that we were out of the running. So that is wonderful. Did Farm Credit give us an idea of the amount that they're looking at, or?
No, I think the maximum that we could, Deputy Mayor, that we could apply for was $20,000. And I believe that's what Mike had provided to Farm Credit Corporation. And I believe Mike's not able to be with us this evening. He's got a family commitment. But I believe that the announcements from FCC were slated to take place in late August of 2021. That's the timing I recall Mike advising us about.
Okay, and that, Greg, is open every year. They put that out. And certainly there's enough of we farmers that have paid our share of interest into that corporation. So payback would be nice.
Well, like everything else, the business of playground equipment has got a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive. We used to be able to hang a tire from a tree by a rope and say, there you go, kids, but we can't do that anymore. Anyway, okay, we're going to move on. Number 5, are there any additions or deletions from the agenda that's presented before us tonight? Seeing none, could I please get a motion to adopt the agenda that's before us? Deputy Clerk, Councillor Howie, all in favor? Carried. Okay, number 7 is the minutes. We've got 3 sets of minutes here. Are there any questions to clerk or staff on any of the minutes, any of the 3 sets? Seeing none, can I get a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the June 7th public meeting, the June 7th regular meeting, and the June 21st regular council meeting? Councillor Powers and Councillor Allen. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we have no delegations tonight. Staff reports. First, we're starting out with Recreation, Parks and Facilities. Apparently, Mike Nelson could not attend tonight's meeting, so I think, Greg, are you going to present this one?
Between myself and Heather, if we can represent this particular report to council, Mr. Mayor. I think it's the report's relatively straightforward. So we come at this time of the year with the recommendations for rates for recreation parks and facility rental rates. This allows us, we're starting already to draw up contracts for the fall season. So for ice and those sort of types of things. So We are here in July and with recommendations, and Mr. Nelson has put forward a report with some nominal fee increases for the various rental rates.
Thank you. And to Nick and Ken, as members of the Parks and Arena Committee, has your committee reviewed these increases?
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. No, we have not. No, we have our next committee meeting is happening in is it next week? It might be next week, I think.
Okay.
I think Councillor Howie shaking his head, yeah. So next week, which I suspect we would be looking at them then, but we have not as a committee met to review those.
Okay. All right. Well, the proposed rates are before us. Are there any questions from members of council? Deputy Clerk, go ahead.
They're very nominal increases. I certainly would support this. I don't see anything glaring or jumping out. Just in the future around the Gold Room and kitchen, I'm wondering if because the facilities are older and maybe need a bit of an update, if that is impeding some of our rentals. I know with COVID that certainly, has put a damper on everything, but maybe at some point in time we can look at funding for that and just updating the kitchen a bit.
Well, I'm sure you're right. The condition of it probably does deter some rentals, but if we could ever be successful in some of the phase 2 funding for the arena renovations, it's going to be addressed at that time. And we're still holding out a sliver of hope on that one.
Just if I may follow up with when you say a sliver of hope, and maybe this is through the mayor to our CAO, Greg, timing on that for the second round.
Mr. Mayor, through to the Deputy Mayor, senior government funding and streams of funding have sort of taken about 6 left turns. So as far as waiting for the next intake, and so typically what they'll do is they'll do a group of projects with a certain value of funding, deal with that intake, and then have another intake. Well, what they've done is that they've taken a lot of this, and I don't like using acronyms, but the ICIP funding, which council is aware of, which is the infrastructure money. What they did is rather than doing a next phase, they divvied it up and gave everybody in the smaller communities $100,000. And that's what we got the money to do our 2 dehumidifiers for the arena. So we got part of what we want to do in the arena, a very small part. But I don't know, I don't anticipate, and I haven't heard anything. Mr. Mayor may have heard something from our MPP, but I don't know when the next or a planned intake might come for recreation types of projects.
Right. We're just keeping an ear to the ground, and if as and when an opportunity presents itself, we're going to jump on it. But in the meanwhile, the Gold Room sits there, and you're right, Deputy Clerk, it could use a facelift. But at any rate, as Deputy Clerk said, the increases, the suggested increases here are nominal, and this is something that is done every year. And it seems to work to keep our prices in line with costs and yet not direct too much opposition from the users. So is there any other questions on this? Councilor Powers, go ahead.
No questions, Mayor Taylor. I was ready to move that we approve the presented rental rates as described or presented.
Excellent. So Councilor Powers has moved to approve these proposed rental rates. Councilor Howie has seconded it. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving down now to, where do we go now? 14, planning. First is a consent application B39-21. And this is the consent application. I will look to our planner to provide the details. Go ahead, Ken.
Mayor Taylor, this is consent application B-39-21 relative to the lands addressed 169 Division Road. The purpose of this application is to create a vacant residential lot with frontage on Division Road. The subject property is located east of the intersection of Division Road and Burnham Line. Subject property is currently vacant with some agricultural uses existing. The proposed lot area of the severed parcel is approximately 0.3 hectares with approximately 51 meters of frontage along Division Road. The proposed retained lot will have approximately 30 hectares of lot area and approximately 183 meters of frontage along Burnham Line. It is recommended that the condition of consent, the severed parcel is required to be rezoned from rural to rural residential to address the lot area and lot frontage deficiencies, and rezone the sections of the retained parcel, rezone the sections of the retained parcel to environmental protection to restrict development on lands that may be environmentally sensitive. Relatively straightforward consent application. I'm not sure if there are any questions from council on this one.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, there's four conditions attached to the recommended approval, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Questions to our planner on this one? Ken, go ahead. Bonnie, go ahead.
I don't mind waiting. Go ahead.
Ken, did you notice? I couldn't help but notice when I reviewed the site plan associated with this, or the planning map, sorry, associated with this application. It was incredibly similar to an application that we had last month. So much so that I thought, this is the same application. And I went back last month and it's two different addresses. This is clearly not the same application. But it's amazing how close the configuration of the retained lot is on those two applications. Did you notice that?
I recall the one that you're talking, that was the other narrow lot that you brought up last meeting.
Correct. 1661 Division Road was
Yep.
the map and the address. And I thought, wow, it's just really uncanny how similar they are. Questions, Deputy Clerk, go ahead.
Yes, just the subject conditions there's 5 bullet points, if I can just point out, not 4 to the mayor.
I'm only seeing 4. I'm seeing $1,000 cash in lieu, severed lands be rezoned, portions of the retained land be rezoned from rural to EP, and entrance for the satisfaction of public works. Which one am I missing?
Oh, do you know something? I apologize. I'm speaking to the garage because I did call to the planner today regarding the garage, but that is on the portion that does not have the residence on and will be addressed at the time of the rezoning. So that's my apology. I'm hooking that provision on to the severance. So I'm certainly in support of this. And as I did have the conversation before with our planner, Ken Scullion, that the garage issue will be addressed with a rezoning on the property that will only have the garage on it. So, all right.
Well, I'm going to take that as a motion to approve the recommendation.
Correct.
Good. Do I have a seconder? Second by Councillor Allen. Okay, speaking to the motion. Go ahead, Nick.
Just a question. Your comments ping me off to something I had mentioned or I wanted to ask, which is on the actual key map for this particular item. I found it very interesting, the layout of the severed lot. If you look at it, the box sort of impedes into an existing, appears to be severed area, which is a very unusual layout that's happening there. Was that a mistake in our drawing, or is that actually what it looks like?
I believe that is what it looks like due to constraints that exist on the subject property, which made that location an ideal location.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
Any other questions in speaking to the motion, which is a recommendation to approve with the 4 conditions? Okay, it was moved by Deputy Clerk, seconded by Councillor Allen. Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, that of course goes on to the county for approval. Consent application B45-21. No, this one does have 5 conditions. Go ahead, Ken.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Taylor. This is consent application B-45-21 for the lands address 2137 Burnham Line. Purpose application is to create a residential lot with frontage on Burnham Line, south of Highway 7. It's currently a single detached dwelling as well as a garage on the subject property. The proposed civil lot of the proposed severed parcel will have a lot area of approximately 0.14 hectares and a lot frontage of approximately 34 meters along Burnham Line. The retained parcel will have identical shape and size, 0.14 hectares in size, with a lot frontage of approximately 34 meters along Burnham Line. As the subject property is zoned rural residential, it does not meet the lot area and lot frontage provisions of the rural residential zone. A rezoning application with site-specific permissions will be required for the proposed retained and severed parcels as a condition of consent. Further, the existing garage will need to be addressed. This is due to, based on the drawings provided, the approximate drawings provided, lot coverage is approximately 8% lot coverage, whereas a maximum lot coverage 5% is permitted. So this will need to be addressed through either a demolition of the garage, through rezoning, or through a minor variance application. That's about it for that. If there are any questions from council.
Questions from members of council to staff on this one? Okay, the recommendation is to approve with 5 conditions listed. Is council prepared to make a decision? Deputy Clerk, go ahead.
Yes, I certainly concur with staff's recommendation.
Move the recommendation and seconded by Councillor Powers. Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Ken. Okay, the lift hold symbol, a zoning bylaw application. And is Greg, are you or Ken going to speak to this one?
Speak to this, Greg, if that's okay.
I was muted there. Ken can speak to this, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Zoning bylaw amendment application Z-10-21. For lifting of the H holding symbol for phase 2 and 3 of the proposed Ambria Riverbed Estates planted condominium located between Matchett Line and Otonabee River. Phase 2 consists of 37 residential units and phase 2 consists of 37 residential units and phase 3 consists of 46 residential units for a total of 83 units. Bylaw number 2016-39 states that the proposed condominium development on the subject land zoned RR-18-H would be restricted until the following conditions are satisfied. 1, a condominium agreement has been entered into with the municipality and registered on title. And 2, a responsibility agreement is entered into the municipality with any other appropriate authorities. Both the condominium agreement and municipal responsibility agreement have been entered into between the developer and the township. We are therefore recommending to bring forward a bylaw to lift the H holding symbol on the lands identified as phase 2 and 3 as per the provided phasing plan, which are the lands zoned RR-18-H. If there are any questions from council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And I'm almost surprised that there isn't a representative from Ambria Homes on the call tonight, because I know that they're very eager to see this happen and get going. It's taken a long time to get here. Questions to staff from any members of council on this? Necessary part of the development process. And it's important to note that the responsibility agreement has been entered into and the necessary securities have been provided to the township. Okay, questions, Deputy Clerk?
And you mentioned it right there in your sentence through the mayor.
Okay.
I was just going to address the securities portion and you have already, Mayor Taylor, so that is fine. And can you, through the mayor, to Greg, just around the securities portion, we get these security portions, and because of inflation, et cetera, then at the end of maybe 2 decades, it looks like a pittance in the pot if the municipality is held accountable for anything. What are they based on, or how can we address those deficiencies for a way down the road?
So, Mr. Mayor, through the Deputy Mayor, so these are condominium draft plan agreements. So we're not going to own the roads. Okay, so there are two separate condominium agreements that would be listed to two separate condominium entities. Okay, and so for phase one with the 47 lots, they have to build that. And so with each of the condominium agreements, they have to put down security for each agreement. And in the agreements for the condominium agreements, there's a third, the third agreement is the responsibility agreement, because they are going to be offering their own private water and wastewater services, right? So what the condos have to do is that they, when things are built and we're not going to be accepting them as municipal roadways. So then they, in the agreement, have to put together with their condo boards, reserves in place for replacement of road systems and operating funds in order for them to do things like winter control and those sort of types of things in their properties. So there are obligations under the condominium agreements that they have to convert it from the agreement with security to then convert it to within the condominium bylaw and establish the reserves, and the reserves are funded through the condominium fees that are paid for by those particular residents. Okay, so for both the condo agreements and as well the responsibility agreement for them to own and operate their water and wastewater system. So those are in those agreements that they have to then put in place with their condo fees that they're going to receive from the 130 condo members of the two associations.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Just with a follow-up. So with these condominium agreements, that certainly gives the municipality more, I would say, a sense of security if a water system failed or roads than when there is an entity that would not have a condominium agreement in place. Those are the facilities that make us more liable than a condominium.
Mr. Mayor, through that, so they would have to establish in their financials reserve funds for them to collect from the owners, and they have to, and those reserves and reserve funds, I believe, are reviewed every 5 years in order to assure that they're meeting the required security that's necessary for those particular capital plant infrastructure.
Thank you.
Reviewed by whom, Greg?
They have to, part of it is in there, Mr. Mayor, part of it is in there for the water and wastewater. So the wastewater is in their environmental compliance approval, but they have to do a review every 5 years of the facility and the plant. Well, actually have to do it every year, but it's from a capital infrastructure and a financing perspective. They do it every 5 years to ensure that the condo corporation is securing enough money for replacement costs and the cost of operating costs for those major infrastructure pieces. So there is a condition in the ECA from the Ministry of the Environment as well as in the condominium agreement.
And thank you, but the actual review to make sure the reserve funds are topped up to a level where they
Right.
Is that, does the township get that information? Does their engineer get it? Who gets that?
What would happen is that their condominium board would get that, and they have to be audited every year, and that's a condition that's in their agreements that they have to satisfy.
Okay. All right, any other questions from members of council on this particular item on our agenda? And Heather, did we get a motion to approve this yet? I
No,
think we did.
no.
We did not? Okay, so we're looking for a motion then, if council sees fit, to direct the clerk, deputy CAO to bring forward the necessary bylaw, which is before us tonight, to remove the holding symbol from the subject lands. Anybody willing to make that motion? Councillor Allen and Councillor Powers. All in favor? That is carried. Ken Curry, busy building department is about to get busier. Okay, moving down now to 14.4, which is a building and planning update report. Ken or Greg, who's presenting that?
I believe we'll leave it to Ken, and then Greg can chirp in if there's any questions that are asked.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I guess this is my first appearance before you, so I'm not sure what the protocols are with these kind of reports. Am I to be reading the entire report or just fielding questions as you've already read it?
Well, I don't think it's necessary to read the entire report, Ken, because we've had it and we've all read it, but certainly I would suggest you touch upon the highlights, and then I would expect there will be questions after.
Well, I mean, for the most part, you've already covered the development parts of it. Ambia is doing as fast as they can get going on their next phases. The revenues for this far this year are way above what we would be expecting to normally see. We're at about 75 or 80% of what our budget is. And permits are rolling in faster than we can service them, that's for sure. So and now we're short one more staff, so this makes life even more difficult. The on-farm diversified, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's much in there that you don't already know. And then there's the site plan approvals that everybody's working on. That's pretty much it, really, as a quick synopsis.
Thank you, Ken. You're right. Certainly, the level of activity, and the number of permits issued, and the associated fees with that is well above where we projected we would be at this time of year. It's an indication of how busy things really are. Yep. Questions to staff on this one? Go ahead, Councillor Powers.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Just a question, and I'm not sure if Ken or Greg are best to answer this one, but it's around the on-farm diversified use, or maybe Mayor Taylor and Deputy Clark. County Council passed a motion for deferral of our on-farm diversified use. Can we speak to a little bit in terms of what was the purpose of the deferral versus the approval? Was there something that there was concerning to them?
Yes. County Council voted to defer, even though county planning staff recommended approval. County planning staff voted to defer it, requesting that county planning staff do more engagement with some interested parties. The interesting thing about that is public consultation is not part of the county's approval process. That responsibility falls on the lower tier. So it's up to the county to make sure that public consultation was done and was done adequately. And they were satisfied that it was, because that was contained in the report with the recommended for approval. So it is an odd situation and a somewhat difficult one. And Greg, perhaps I'll get you just to sum up where we are with this and what options we may have.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the members of council. So through to Councillor Powers, so this project, as I think everyone is aware, started in 2018 with funding from the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, and there was a significant number of stakeholder events and consultations. It all culminated with the development of an official plan amendment, so a comprehensive. So what we would refer to from the planning perspective is a comprehensive OP amendment. So what that means is it's not a site-specific one for a particular property or set of property. So it would amend the township's OP, so in its entirety. And as well, there would be a comprehensive zoning bylaw amendment, which would amend certain sections of our entire zoning bylaw. So that, so as the mayor indicated, from a regulatory perspective, that under the Planning Act, there is delegation of responsibility to the various levels of local government. So some go to the county, some go to the local townships. And so, for instance, tonight we dealt with minor variances and we've dealt with zone changes and those zone change applications. Those are fully in the purview of the local townships. The official plan amendments and things like land division for severances are in the upper tier. But as occurred here today, that once land division and those particular folks meet, the conditions come back to the township, and the township then will approve different conditions that would then be sent back up to the county for administration. So the same thing goes with the official plan amendments. So in this particular case, all of the local consultation, all of the regulatory and statutory public meetings, all are handled by the local township. So our township in this particular manner. So we have to do the statutory meetings, give the notice, hold the meetings. This was actually our comprehensive OP and zoning bylaw. So we were that drafted those particular documents and reviewed them and put them through circulation. So it then comes to our council, and it comes to our council as a section 34 meeting, as we had tonight, where council sits as a planning entity. And at that particular time, as you saw tonight, that any public consultation, public input comes forward to it. And then in our particular case, as council sits as the planning entity, you make a decision to approve and adopt and forward for the enaction of the bylaw at the council meeting. So we did that. We did all of that particular process. We had all the public meetings. We gave notice. We heard delegation. So the public meeting was on the 22nd of March. So what we then have to do is we follow a checklist, an official plan checklist, which has about a dozen items on it from the county that we have to follow to put this particular, all the materials together from council's decision. So when we came out of the planning meeting, that item was then brought to council in the same evening, and council passed the bylaws for both the OPA and the zoning. So all of those particular items, which includes all of the notes of consultation and all of those items, we have to put in a package, and that they have to be certified by the clerk. And then there has to be sworn affidavits by our planner and as well as our clerk that accompany this package to the county. So the county received the package on the 30th of March. And what they do is they do a technical review of it. And what they do is they issue a notice of acceptance and a notice of a complete application. And I know we talk about that all the time with some of our clients. And so we received in writing from the county planning committee, on the 14th of April that our package had been complete, had been deemed complete, and the technical aspects of it had been deemed complete. That package did not go to county council for consideration until the 30th of June. So there was a fair delay that went between the 14th of April to the 30th of June. And so when it went there in June, what occurs is very similar to what we have here, is that their planners would issue a report. And the report looks at it and gives a recommendation to the council under the Planning Act. And typically the report will say, we're recommending approval, we're recommending non-approval, or we're recommending deferral. In this particular case, the county planning staff in their report recommended approval by county council. So what that says is, after their technical review, is that it's met all of the planning conditions, the provincial planning or provincial policy statement. It meets the county OP, it meets the town OP. So all of those conditions were in that particular report. It was accompanied by a technical report, and it's about an inch thick. And that really is a copy of all of the materials that we sent up with our affidavits and with our certifications, and talks about issues around consultation, who we consulted with, notes that we would have received, comments that we would have received in writing, and all of that package goes there. The other thing that goes to county council is an actual copy of the proposed OP. And so all of that went there. It was recommended by the county planners. Now I understand when it went to before county council made the decision to defer. So they did not accept the recommendation of the planners that were putting this forward under the Planning Act. And there was a motion to defer. So I'll leave it to you, Mr. Mayor, because you were there. But that's in a nutshell about how these types of applications, which are highly technical, so all the way through, this was all, as just to remind council, this particular OPA and zoning bylaw, it was drafted and circulated, and this process was dealt with by EchoView Planning Consultant. So it was our consulting planner that was in charge with this, in consultation with our previous planner and as well our current planner. So that's the process. That's the process for OPAs. Hopefully, Councillor Powers, that answers your question about what has occurred, what steps have happened. We've done everything that we can to get it into the hands of the county for their final adoption.
Go ahead, Deputy Clerk, go ahead.
Yes, I think looking at the bigger picture, the county is doing a new OP as well. And the farm community doesn't have a agricultural representative on that technical advisory committee, if you hear TAC. So therefore, speaking to members of the Peterborough County Federation of Agriculture, they felt that their input wasn't being heard or hadn't been heard. I mean, they may concur with everything going on. And in fact, the committee itself, Peterborough County Federation of Agriculture, is hosting a meeting for farmers. Farmers are very hard to engage in these processes. They're busy this time of year. It's just so intense. And they are reaching out to get people to come in. There is a well-renowned planner, Margaret Walton, who will be a speaker and answering any questions. So to try to engage the farming community, which will then possibly impact the county OP. So if I can just speak what I'm referring to tonight and speaking as the county official plan around on-farm diversification, not OSMs. So just a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes, and hoping that there will be some, on that TAC committee, some agricultural representation for the county official plan.
There was clearly, I think, a little confusion amongst council members, county council members, insofar as Deputy Mayor Clark is correct. The county is going through the process of updating or renewing their official plan right now. It's a very lengthy, detailed undertaking, and it's their own official plan. And consultation on various groups will be part of that and should be part of that, especially anything related to agriculture. But this is Otonabee-South Modding's official plan. It's different. And what we do with our OP is not binding or relevant on any other township or the county. This is our own. And I think there was some misunderstanding around the council table on that. And so if Otonabee-South Monaghan wants to approve an OPA related to on-farm diversified use, it does not affect any other township in the county. Some townships have already done it. And it certainly doesn't affect the county OP, but there was a little confusion there. But anyway,
I just
I've
have a
got some
question,
hands
just
up. Go ahead,
just a
Greg.
comment, Mr. Mayor. So just to remind council, so we are a part of the county TAC committee that is updating the official plan. So we have our own official plan, as Mayor Taylor has said. Some local lower tier municipalities in Peterborough County do not have their own OP. We do. And so we came to this council in 2020, maybe the end of 2019, and I asked for council's authorization for the township to enter and participate in the county OP, and not update the town's current OP. So in the future, that there would be one OP, and that official plan would be for both county and township. So we are a member of that TAC committee and have been for about 3 years since its inception. And so we are going through those particular processes. And so our former planner, Jamie, was on that particular group. Ken is on that group. I am engaged in that as well as the CAO. So just so that our council is aware of our involvement in that, but it's not happening in isolation away from our planning sites here within the township.
I think Councilor Powers, did you have your hand up, Nick? A minute ago?
Just to sort of, I guess, circle back, if you will, to my initial comments is, I'm very disappointed that the county decided to defer that. I think back to what Greg had mentioned, the process was thorough. It covered all the necessary review items that required to move it to the county level. And so I'm just disappointed that it was deferred at all. And I guess a follow-up would be, do we have any sense as to when this might get back onto the county's agenda, if it took that long to get there in the first place? Because at this point, if I'm not mistaken, we cannot approve OFDU applications at this point beyond what we have already in place in terms of the more detailed approach versus the simplified approach that was proposed through the on-farm diversified use. So maybe if we can just clarify that. A, when is the county going to get it back on the agenda? And then B, what are we doing for on-farm diversified use applications in the meantime?
Okay, Greg, I'll let you answer those questions, and we'll go over to Councilor Allen. He had his hand up.
Sure. You are correct. So through Mr. Mayor, through to the council, you are correct. But we cannot move far because the policies are not enacted. And so it doesn't allow us to act. And so you are correct. We have a bit of a lineup of some local entrepreneurs and local farmers that want to take advantage of these particular new policies. And they've been really excited about doing that. And we're not able to act. And so, we're coming out of COVID and people are looking for new ways to generate revenue and keep people on the farm and do some of those particular things that typically wouldn't be allowed under the current OPA and zoning. And so we are having to ask them to be patient. And of course, patience is in little supply these days. As far as I'll let the mayor sort of deal with, I was not at the county council meeting as far as the future dates for this particular to be reviewed. Now, just to remind council that once an official plan or zoning bylaw is amended and is approved by the approval authority, there is an appeal period afterwards, after that particular thing, before that policy comes in force and effect, and it's typically 20 days. And so we still have to have it approved, and we still have to wait for the appeal period in order to. So we were hoping to do this early in the spring. That's why we were here in March, so we could get into our building season and allow some of these folks to do that. We are we're at a standstill.
But just before I go over to Councillor Allen, and I think Councillor Deputy Clerk had her hand up, Nick, to answer your question, the motion was to defer it and to bring it back to County Council not later than, I think, the second meeting in October, October 20th or something like that. I don't have the exact date in my hand, but late in October. So it's a fairly lengthy deferral. It could come back earlier, and maybe we could request that, but certainly that was in the motion. Councillor Allen, you had your hand up.
Okay, I think, thanks, Mayor Taylor. I promise I'm mute too. I don't know if the question's to you, Greg, but I'll send it that way. And just so I'm clear, and Mayor Taylor mentioned, and then Greg talked about us joining the county official plan, which we've been talking about for some time, and Mayor Taylor talked about, our OPS, that amendments that we can make. So if I'm clear, or if I understand completely, when we follow the county official plan, but we can have our own amendments within that. Is that just for clarification? I wasn't exactly sure. Like our
Okay, sure, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the Councillor Allen. So there are two, in our case, in our instance for OSM Township, we have a local OPA. We have a local OP, which only deals with issues related to policy and planning for our official plan for our township. And that particular official plan, it then funnels into the overall county official plan. So there would be some specific policies that are only related to OSM Township in our plan. So this particular amendment was for amendment of the township OP, not the county OP. It was going to be to amend our OP to allow on-farm diversified uses, but it would be consistent with the county OP, because as was stated, and for the record, is that the province allows for on-farm diversified use as a part of the provincial policy statement, and they are different in each of the local jurisdictions. So the county OP allows for, and I'll use the acronym OFDU, uses, and we were going to specify specific uses in our local OFDU, and then the associated comprehensive zoning bylaw amendments that would allow those permitted uses in the various zones. Does that answer your question, Mark? Is that
Yes, it does. And thanks for that clarification. And I guess a follow up on that would be, I too am disappointed that we're waiting now until October for this to happen, possibly. And if there's any opportunity to move it more quickly, I would definitely support that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Deputy Clerk, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor to Greg. Greg, as you say, there's a number of people in the queue. So we do have a process in place. Can they not start in that process and not delay and start it now?
Mr. Mayor, no, they cannot, because the official plan has not been amended to allow those policies, that they cannot apply for their local. So let's say it's a site-specific application, so they want to do it on a particular piece of property.
Right.
They would be able to do, for instance, a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment if it was required.
Yeah.
Because the zoning is not in place, they're not able to apply for a building permit to do those particular items. So if they needed to make structural changes in a farm building for a yoga studio or whatever, they're not able to do that, because our current official plan at the township level and our current comprehensive zoning bylaw has not been amended to allow those particular uses. So those uses are still prohibited.
And are these people in queue, are they farmers?
Most of them are farmers.
Most of them are,
I'm just saying, so they would be working on agricultural lands, right? So when we talk about farmers, in the strict definition of farmers, so you would have, under this particular use, you would have what I would call enhanced uses, for instance, for vineyards and wineries, right? You'd have enhanced uses for an agricultural attraction, if I may, that might also be wanting to look at something that would supplement it by, on-farm accommodation, right? So they have to be agricultural in order for them to take advantage of these particular items. But these uses are, because the policy has not been adopted, both at the OPA and zoning level, we can't service these particular individuals until these policies are amended.
And don't forget, I think it's really important to remember that on-farm diversified use used to be called secondary use. And really, that's still what it is. The diversified use must be secondary to the agricultural practice. So Ken Skelly, you're on the call here tonight. If I owned 100 acres of vacant land and I had no intention of farming it, I just wanted to own some vacant land, I couldn't put a non-farm diversified use on there because it's not secondary. It would be the only use. So until it becomes unless it is a secondary use, it can't be permitted. Is that correct, Ken Scullion?
That is correct. It needs to be secondary to the principal use of the land.
Which is agriculture. So I don't want to get into a discussion about, because council, we've been 3 years we've been through this, but what I would suggest is perhaps a resolution of council directing our CAO to write a letter to the CAO of the County of Peterborough requesting that this issue be brought forward to be dealt with in August, as opposed to waiting until October. I'm not suggesting that we would necessarily get that, but we could ask, and I don't see any harm in that if council agrees. Deputy Clerk, go ahead.
yes, and I think as you, through the mayor, as you stated that it was October, the second meeting, late was the absolute last date. But certainly if this could be consultation through the farming community could be done on a more expedient time frame, that was the direction of the motion of County Council.
Okay, so yeah, the consultation piece is problematic because that's not part of the PPS for the upper tier to engage in consultation, but I'll let staff figure that one out because it is problematic. A consultation is our responsibility, not the county's, on a local OPA. But does council agree that we perhaps should direct the CAO to write a letter to the county CAO requesting that this issue be brought forward in August? And
Yes.
if you agree with that, then I think we should do so in the form of a motion. So it's clearly a direction of council to our CAO to do that. Councillor, how are you willing to make that motion? Councillor Allen, I think you had your hand up. Mark, you second that?
Yes.
Greg, are you clear on what council is asking you to do here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe that I'm clear that I'm asked to, we've had a fulsome conversation about sort of the process and where we're at. And we're asking that County Council would bring forward their first meeting in August is August the 4th. They have 2 meetings in August, so we would like to have this particular. We'll ask for August the 4th for this particular matter, and the recommendations that are in support of it by the planners to be considered at the meeting of County Council on August the 4th.
Well, let me say that I don't know that we will get it if we ask, but I'm reasonably sure we won't get it if we don't ask. So I don't see the harm in it. So Councillor Howie's made that motion. Councillor Allen has seconded it. I'm going to call a vote. All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. We're going to move down now to.
We need a motion, Mr. Mayor, about this report.
Oh, geez, we got.
Any other questions related to the report?
Need a
Sorry.
motion to approve the information report prepared by the Director of Building Services and the CBO. And I saw Deputy Clerk with her hand up and Councillor Allen to second it. All in favor?
I would move the motion to receive the report, and just to tell staff, we are certainly appreciative of all the effort in COVID times, and with these numbers, it's absolutely amazing. So try not to burn out.
No, that's very good. I know it's difficult, but you're getting the job done somehow. And certainly council appreciate that. So going back to the motion, Heather, did I get a mover and a seconder?
Yes, you did.
Did I call the vote?
No, you did not.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right. Moving down now to bylaws. Could I get a motion, please, that bylaws 2021-33, 34, 35, and 36 be read a first time? Deputy Clerk, Councillor Howie, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we're going to ask the clerk to review the bylaws, and I know that Ken Curry is attending the meeting tonight specifically to speak to bylaw 2021-36. So we'll ask Ken to jump in when we get to it. Go ahead, Heather.
Excuse me, Mayor Taylor, it's actually Ken Scullion that would be speaking to the planning.
Ken Scullion. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Sorry. Bylaw number 2021-33 is your confirming bylaw for your June 7th and 21st council meetings. Bylaw 2021-34 is the planning, the zoning bylaw amendment for Walsh that you heard earlier. Bylaw 2021-35 is the planning, the holding removal bylaw for Ambria. And 2021-36 is the planning, it's the establish of tariff of fees in relation to planning application and planning related services.
Okay, Ken Scullion, did you wish to speak to 2021-36 at all, or were you going to wait to see if there's any questions from council? How do you want to handle that?
I could speak to now if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. So some revisions I believe you received from Heather. The new prices in the fees, I'm sorry, in Schedule A for planning application, planning related fees were an increase of 4% that were set to be increased in May of this year. So the new fees are a reflection of that increase. And I also revised the site plan control section. There is now a way to differentiate between minor, intermediate, and major site plan control applications, with all the fees outlined there as well. And I also changed the language from site plan approval applications to site plan control applications to remain consistent with the site plan control bylaw and how the township official plan refers to site plan control applications. So it's just a consistency. I just did that to remain consistent along documents. The minor revisions, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
I think I can. And just for clarification, council had a planning tariff of fees report brought to us a couple of years ago with projected increases for the next 3 or 4 years, I think, correct? And at that time we approved it. And these prices here merely reflect what we had originally agreed to approve for 2021. Sometime in 2021, May, these are supposed to come forward. They're just a little late coming before council. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And if you look at the end of the fee and the planning fees, planning related fees, there's a planning increase of 4% beginning in 2023. So I believe that's a continuation of what you just mentioned, Mayor Taylor.
So is that 2023 or 2022, Ken?
I have here 2023. Is that 2022 would make sense?
Let's do 2022.
So that will need to be revised. But 2022, yes, 4% increase in January of 2022.
Correct. Okay, questions from members of council and on any of the bylaws, but I expect this one's going to generate most of it. Go ahead, Deputy Clerk.
Yes, just around the site plan approval. these increases, and as you say, we did approve them. The first point, specific control bylaw if required in an area where that is exempt is the agriculture. We spoke before in our on-farm diversification OP change that sometimes staff would require a site plan agreement. If so, would this then fit into that $5,200 into that OFDU?
Now, I really believe that would depend on the context of the application because it could fall under the minor definition, which is outlined in the column below.
Mr. Mayor, so depending on the complexity of the plan control bylaw, so how large it is, how large the OF, so if it was, for instance, an example of a use for OFDU, let's say they're going to use an existing building, as I said, for a yoga studio. So we're not going to be building new buildings and anything. They're going to show driveways and everything. That would be a minor one. But if you're going to be doing something where you're going to be doing something a little larger, there would be the medium one, and then of course something that would happen to be a larger venue type of thing would fall into the larger. So our staff make the decision based on the complexity as the planner has said, and that determines whether it's a minor, a major, or major use in those particular cases.
So I'm just not clear. If it's a minor, I see 5,200.
If it's an intermediate, it is 7,280.
Yeah.
If determined to be a major, then it goes to 10,400.
If it is a minor though,
A minor,
it's
5,200, yeah. If it's
okay. 5,200 is a minor, even if it is was an OFDU site plan agreement, it would be considered a minor. It's 5,200.
yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councillor Powers, go ahead.
Just in terms of so the 4%, it sounds like this has already been pre-approved by council, the 4%. So we're not approving this increase. This has already been approved by council. Am I mistaken? We are approving a 4% increase, or this is simply for information. Can I get clarification on that?
No. Would you like me to clarify, Mr. Mayor? Okay, so back in 2019, when we brought the business plan to folks, we said we were going to do an adjustment in 2020 and an adjustment in 2021. So this is the 2021 adjustment that council has approved, but it has to be done by bylaw. So council has to approve the bylaw for us to assess the fees, since council is the one that approves fees.
Okay, because I know we did some pretty extensive work back in 2018 into 2019 to align our planning fee with the actual cost associated with putting those activities together. And so I think it'll be important for us to get an understanding is a 4% increase, and we'll look at this, I guess, after 2022, because it looks like we've pre-approved this all the way, whether or not 4% is the proper amount to be increasing, or whether or not we're going a little too far or not far enough. That's all. And so just food for thought there. There's not much we can do. It sounds like we've sort of quasi already approved the 4% increase. I was more curious whether or not though that 4% increase aligns with our actual costs today. And so maybe moving forward, it might be helpful to see that, yes, we're seeing a 4% increase in our cost, therefore it's a 4% increase in the fees. Because these are not small fees. These are pretty extensive fees, and rightly so. In some cases, they take quite a bit of effort and staff time, and that's why we came to those numbers. I just want to make sure that we're increasing at the right rate to meet the demands and the requirements of our staff and resources. So that's all I'll just say for comment there.
Perhaps it would be fair to suggest to staff that before council considered another 4% increase in January, that we would like some sort of justification or explanation to make sure that our new fees are aligned with our actual costs, because these projections were made a couple of years ago and things change. So I think, Nick, if that would make you more comfortable with a further 4% in January, I don't think it's out of line to ask staff to review the costs and review the expenses and to make sure that the increase is in line with what it should be.
Yeah, that's certainly something I think we would value, just to make sure that, you know, we're all in agreement to say, you know, that our costs are going up. Therefore, we need to increase the fees at a set amount, whatever that set amount happens to be.
Okay.
1%.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, so if you recall the last couple of budgeting processes, we came in and we gave the individual departmental budgets, which would include those fee increases. So you can see what the bottom line is between revenues and costs for those particular, the projections for the year, right? And then we can look back a little bit to see what the actuals were. So we would do this as a normal course of our budgeting process for 2022.
Yeah, I'm just hearing from council, and I tend to agree that we want to make sure if we're proposing, we're going to approve another 4% increase, that we need to ensure that it's justified, and that's what council I think is requesting. So before you plug it into the new budget, I think it would be a good idea for staff to prepare some information for council to consider, so we can understand why another 4% increase is necessary.
Yeah, and just a quick follow up. The designation of minor, intermediate, and major, I can appreciate the undertaking of doing that. Some are much more complex than others. I'm just curious, how did we get to the specific numbers associated with a major, intermediate, or minor? I'm curious how we got there.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, so those aren't new. Those were in our bylaw, right? That in our existing bylaw, and that change was made in 22, I'm going to say the end of, it would have been in 2020 when we updated our site plan control bylaw. We gave definitions to minor, intermediate, and major in that particular bylaw when we talked about those particular items that when we did the comprehensive update to our site plan control bylaw and authorization and delegation for staff. Right, Heather? That's when we did that in that case.
Okay.
Okay.
My mistake. Then I was interpreting our discussion as this was something new that we have put in here based on what we were talking about.
We changed the wording to include site plan control rather than site plan agreement.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. Thank you.
Deputy Clerk Bonnie, did you have a question?
Yes, just a comment, and certainly on the same page, we need to justify. And if we're, you know, this is COVID times, if we're putting a 4% increase in and we turn around 6 months later and put another 4% in, I'll be very interested to see the figures and would even consider, you know, looking at the 4% increase, you know, next June, even as compared to next January, depending on how those numbers come out. But I'm really interested in the numbers, and I'm uncomfortable doing a 4% in July and turning around 5 months later and doing another 4%. So I really have to justify that in my own mind.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Keep in mind that this is late getting to us. We should have had this in May. But I certainly don't disagree with you. Even if it was May, it still would seem to be a quick turnaround time for another increase. So staff's heard council. We'd like some more information before the next 4% is requested, just to ensure that it is indeed warranted.
Okay.
Any other questions to staff on any of the bylaws? Seeing none, could I get a motion, please, that bylaws 2021-33, 34, 35, and 36 be read a second and third time, signed, sealed, and the corporate seal attached? Seeing Councillor Howie and Councillor Powers. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving down now to correspondence, 18.1, a funding request for $50,000. What's council's suggestion here? Councilor Powers?
I'm just curious. We don't get these types of requests very often, and this is somewhat new for me as a council member. I'm not sure of the appropriate process. I don't believe we've set aside 50,000 or any set amount for a donation of this to or any other organization. So in terms of appropriate process, how does this work when we've done this in the past with other groups or organizations? Certainly this is well beyond, say, you know, $100 or $200 to help with a parade or something else. This is a significant amount of money. So I just want to make sure that I understand the process that we would need to go through to look at this.
Heather, in our budget, I think we have $2,000 in the grants and donation line. Is that
Ms.
something?
Miller, you are correct.
It's 2,000. So council have pre-approved granting and funding up to $2,000 in various organizations. Usually that money is already committed by the time we approve the budget. So you're right, there's no money set aside for this. So council, in my view, and Greg, I guess you can correct me if I'm wrong, council would have a couple of options. One is just simply to receive the request. The other would be to approve it, but then we would have to somehow direct staff as to where that money's supposed to come from. And that could be problematic. I suppose you could decide the ask is too rich and you could agree to a smaller amount. But again, there's no money in the budget for it. So you do have to be careful. Go ahead, Deputy Clerk.
Certainly, I think this is something along the ask of the Canoe Museum. And I think this should be asked on a county level. Therefore, that is the entire county that looks at it. This kind of an ask is huge. And I think it's more than a local ask. When I look at our donation line, which Mayor Taylor and our clerk has said is 2,000, I look at that line more for local entities asking. And so therefore, I think that we just receive this and certainly let county council deal with it as a whole.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, this request has come to county council and it will be going to all the townships. And I don't know how it'll be received elsewhere, but all we can deal with is what we want to do with it. I think Councillor Allen, you had your hand up, Mark? Did you?
I did. Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Just a couple of comments, and I was hoping I could bring them forth now in relation to this request. And I did want to put it on record that I'm not able to support this request, and would ask fellow councillors to consider the same. I'm very much in appreciation of what our local Humane Society and their local volunteers and workers do for, you know, domestic animals and pets and things within our community, and the work they do with our animal control officer as well. But I also a closer look at some of the advocacy, I guess, items that further the OSPCA does. And I think in many ways it's in direct, it becomes problematic with, you know, our very threat of our township in the sense of animal use and that sort of thing. They're very much an animal use, anti-animal use advocacy group. It's pretty open on their website if you look further. And I did note that, like, for an example, the OSPCA is opposing Bill 156, which is the Security for Trespass and Protecting Food Safety Act, which was a very bill that I believe we, as a council, supported at with the province. So those are just some of the reasons. I think there's ample opportunity for our residents individually to make donations to the organization, which I do believe does some very good work in the way, and I'm all support of animal cruelty and those sorts of legislation. But I do think sometimes it dips into an area that some of our residents wouldn't support us spending their money on, in the sense of farm practices, which I already believe are very much done in a humane manner. And some of our other businesses, such as sustainable use within recreational fishing and sport hunting and things like that, that does have some business and is a very much entrenched in some of our local communities. So I just thought it is a very big ask. I don't feel comfortable making making that donation on behalf of our ratepayers, and you know, my thoughts would be that those who would like to support this group and this new build in our community would do so privately. So that's kind of what I wanted to say this. So my recommendation would be to accept the report, or receive the report, and carry on, I guess. Thank you.
Mark, you said you wondered if your fellow councillors would agree with you, and the way to find that out is just to make a motion just to receive the request.
Well, I'll make that motion then, to receive the request, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Councillor Howie has seconded it. Any discussion on the motion? Pretty clear. I think Mark summed it up well, quite frankly. Call the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, the information package is there again just for information purposes. Any discussion on that? It's a new plan with the recognition awards. Motion to receive. Deputy, oh sorry, Bonnie, just receive?
Yes, motion to fully support. Great choice. And yeah.
Okay, move to receive by Deputy Clerk and seconded by Councillor Allen. All in favor? That is received for information purposes. Other matters. I wanted to have a brief discussion with council on this. You know, we currently don't have a land recognition statement to start our council meeting, and we claim and we do. I hope we do have a very good relationship with Hiawatha First Nations, and I'm just wondering if we shouldn't back up our actions with words. I don't want to be a bandwagon jumper. That's not the reason for this. And it's becoming more and more popular around, and that's a good thing. That's fine. But that's not the reason why I'm bringing this forward now. I've been thinking about it for quite some time and just trying to decide when's the right time and the right way to bring it up. So what I would like to do, what I would like council's authorization to do, and I'll require a motion to this effect, is to have myself and the clerk work to bring a draft land acknowledgement to council for their consideration at a future date, certainly sometime in 2021, and I'm hoping it won't be towards the latter part of it. I would also like to have Chief Carr review it before we have council look at it to make sure that she thinks the wording in it is what it should be. And I'm leaning towards something, council, that is not generic, and not the same old land recognition that we hear everywhere, because after a while you hear it so often you begin to tone it out. So there's ways I think that we can say what we need to say in 50 words or less that Hiawatha would appreciate, I think, and our residents would support and council would agree to. So that's what I would like council's approval, and I'm just open up for discussion. Go ahead, Mark first, and then Bonnie. Go ahead.
I think I'm off mute already. Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Actually, you kind of hit on some of the questions I might have had. And by all means, I think I understand what a land recognition is for and the rationale for having them. But some of the questions I had was, I want to say, purposely, what are, like, is it something that's requested by, and I don't know, and I asked because I know you've been around these meetings longer than I have, like our local First Nations, and are they in appreciation of what we're actually saying in their community and stuff? So I think you kind of touched on many of the points that I had. Could we, pass it through our local Hiawatha First Nation and make sure we're saying something that's appreciated in that sense, if that's the right word, and in the acknowledgement. So I think you hit on most of my points, and I think you're on the right track as far as working cooperatively with Hiawatha in coming up with the proper recognition and something maybe that isn't as generic that we hear on many occasions. So that was kind of where I was coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, I think a lot of us around the table have been thinking about it, and especially with our CD partnership that we do have as well. And I don't know if everyone's seen, but PKED put out the tourism, I guess, pledge for visitors coming, and it's very, I quite liked it because it was unique and not the generic. So I'll look forward to what Mayor Taylor and our clerk, Heather Scott, bring back.
Okay, if there's, go ahead, Nick.
Just reiterating, fully supported. I think it is important that we engage and involve Hiawatha First Nation. So I'm glad that you brought that forward. But I think, Joe, you're right that this is. I think it's an important step, and I think it's a good step for us to make and to be engaged with our First Nation partners.
So thank you. So what I would like council to consider is a motion approving the mayor and the clerk to work to draft a land recognition statement, to review it with Hiawatha First Nations and bring it back for council's consideration at a future meeting sometime in 2021. And if you would, Councillor Harry, you willing to make that motion, Ken?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and Councillor Allen, you willing to second it? Any discussion on the motion? Thank you very much. Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Okay. We have nothing for closed session. The last one is motion to adjourn. We've got Powers and Allen, all in favor. Thank you very much, council and staff. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Next.
everyone.